I want to get straight to the message that I came to deliver for everybody, which is based on Allah's saying in Surah Al-Jinn. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأن لو استقاموا على الطريقة لأسقيناهم ماء غدقا. Allah says, if they just had just stayed steadfast on the path, we would have fed them, quenched their thirst with sweet water. And Allah Ta'ala gives us something else like that in Fatiha. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. And وَلَئِنْ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. We know, of course, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the straight path. وَلَئِنْ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. If they strive for our sake, we will guide them to our paths. Sirat, tariq, subul. So what are these? What is the sirat and the tariq and the subul? The sirat and the tariq are synonymous, they're one. And the subul are the lanes within them. The pathways and the lanes inside this path. So now we have to ask, well, what is the path? What is this path? And this path is synonymous with the purpose of our creation. Everybody who has any small sense of introspection would have to ask themselves, what is the purpose of our existence? This is the golden question, and this is the best question that a person ever can ask. What is the purpose of our existence here? And Shaitan doesn't want you to ask that. Shaitan wants you to just go through reels and videos and all these things and pass through life without ever asking what is the purpose. Now to the purpose, we come to three things. There are three answers between the Quran and the Hadith as to the purpose of life. Allah tells, our Creator tells us the purpose of life. And if something fulfills its purpose, it's wonderful. If something is outside of its purpose, it's destruction. The purpose of this water is to go in the body, not inside the mic. You put it inside the mic, it destroys it. It becomes evil. It becomes bad. Water is a terrible thing out of place. Floods, you get flood insurance, right? Because floods are terrible. Because it's water in the bad place, or out of its place. But water is also, people fight wars over water. Water in the body is what you need. So everything has its place. So what is our place as human beings? What's our job? What's our purpose? So Allah gives us three answers. Each answer, how could there be three answers to one question? Well, because it's based on perspective. For some people, they are so far from any knowledge about their Creator. The first answer to them comes in Surah Al-Mulk. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة. He created death and life ليبلوكم. Why does Allah say death first and life? This is because death is the absence of life. And what we experience first actually is death. Like you don't exist, then you exist. Yeah. So He precedes death with life. خلق الموت والحياة. There's another perspective on this, is that He created life. That's the obvious one, because we're all alive. So He brings you the not obvious one, death. خلق الموت والحياة. The one that we don't think about. We don't like to think about death. When was the last time there was a janazah, funeral in this masjid? Probably every week you have at least one, right? In England, Birmingham, they have such a massive community in what's called, in one of their biggest masajid there, Gamgol it's called. They have a room, special room like the back room there, just for janazahs. And they have an imam just for funerals. He treats the family when they come in. He manages the funeral, and they say at least 4 funerals a day. So death is most of the time away from our minds, but Allah brings it forward. So the first question, the first answer is, He created you to test you. Who is the best in deeds? That's what matters. Your deeds are what matter. Who is going to do good deeds? How many times you see people, it takes them sometimes in their 30s and 40s. Something terrible happens. They wake up. Life is not just entertainment. It's not just collecting money. It's not just collecting stuff, attaining power, amassing experiences, pleasures. That's not the purpose. It's sometimes you need to crash in order to think, what is the purpose? And this is where gifted people suffer the most. The more gifted a person, the more shallow he is. Chances are. The more gifted people are like these Hollywood people. They're very gifted. They have money. They have looks. They play make-believe and comedy all day long. That's all they do, playing make-believe. Acting or being comedians and laughing and being models. Like you don't actually work. You don't struggle. You have no problems. Yet they're the most shallow of all people. So sometimes you have to crash in order to ask, what is the bigger purpose of life? And sometimes that crash is not a physical crash, it's a depression. That Imam al-Ghazali, he said, when the same thing happens to a person, everyone has a different perspective on it. He says that when a person goes into depression, the astrologist will say it's the alignment of the stars and the planets that affected his makeup. The physicians will say he must have eaten something and there's chemical processes in his body bringing him down. The psychologists say something different. And he said the theologians will say, the people of Allah, they will say, this depression is a soldier from Allah's soldiers to make you think about deeper matters. And they say that it's the soldier of Allah preparing you for something big. Look at the perspective of Allah's people, the scholars, on this terrible thing called depression. Sadness, grief, depression, whatever you want to call it. The scholars say it's a soldier from the hidden soldiers of Allah that descends upon you like a dark cloud that makes you think deeply and makes you stop activity because your muscles are going to need rest. And depression is nothing other than a forced rest upon you and a forced review of the purpose of life. Allah's forcing it. You don't want to do it yourself? Nobody would do it themselves. Nobody would sit alone in a dark room by themselves and say, as Muhammad Hablo says, don't call me, don't text me, don't, okay? Nobody's going to do that by themselves. Only when you suffer from this. This is the perspective of Allah's scholars and Allah's people on this thing called depression. Now you got somebody thinking of the deeper purpose of life. Now you have somebody not doing anything. This inactivity is a preparation for a great future. Like, this is a wonderful perspective on a terrible thing. And anybody close to Allah and who knows Allah creates nothing without a great wisdom behind it. And that's why being close to Allah sets you free. Depression, yeah, that's something for you, not against you. The only time that we say it's against you is if you react to it with more sins. I'm depressed, so what do I do as a Muslim? All right, forget this whole thing. I'm skipping Salah, I'm going to start drinking, start doing drugs. Then we say, oh, this depression, that's a punishment. If you react to bad things by sins, that's punishment. Now, many people, it's a punishment for a while. Then they wake up. Then they get better. The moment you realize this is for me, not against me. It's for me, not against you. The moment you realize that, this thing is an elevator taking you up. Taking you up, 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 whatever the tribulation is. So the first purpose of life is that this life is a test. All right, okay, I recognize that now. What is the test all about? Now here we go to the second answer to the purpose of life. That's in Surah Ad-Dariyat. Is it Ad-Dariyat? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُم مِّن رِزْقٍ وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَن يُطْعِمُونَ. Allah tells us, I have only created humans, jinn and humans, because the jinn were created before the humans. Al-jinn wal-ins, have not created you for any reason except to worship me. So worshiping Allah now becomes the central focus of the person. What are the acts of worship? What is my sound belief? What do I have to believe in Islam? You know that one time there was a woman, was a secretary, worked for my mom for 20 years. Complete illiterate, dropout, failure in everything in her life. But my mom felt bad for her, gave her a chance, found her to be a fierce and loyal person. And she became very close to our family. And then when our family discovered Islam, came back to the path of Islam, she was like, hey, what are you guys doing? And then we said, this is Islam, blah, blah, blah. She said, I love this. I want to be Muslim. But then the day that she was about to take the Shahada, she said, hold on a second. Are there dinosaurs in the Quran? He said, no. No mention of that. She's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I have to believe in dinosaurs. If the dinosaur's not in the Quran, I can't do it. You see how people need to be educated? People have different levels of brains. And she never took Shahada. Shay ajib jiddan. That's why knowledge is so important. Now, we didn't have much knowledge. The blame is on ourselves. The moral of this story, we could have said, yeah, there are dinosaurs in the Quran implicitly because Allah says, وَيَخْلُقُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. He creates what you don't know. If we had said that, maybe she took her Shahada. That's why knowledge is the first path of worship. If we had said that, perhaps, I blame myself now, if we had said that, maybe she took Shahada. وَيَخْلُقُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. He creates a lot of things that you don't know. We could say, yeah, in general, that could include dinosaurs. It's possible. Knowledge. Because we, at the time, were like, no, there's no mention of dinosaurs in the Quran. There's no dinosaurs in Islam. A poor woman didn't accept Islam. Just on this silly issue. So knowledge is so important. You can actually be used by Allah to guide people or misguide people based on knowledge. So the first thing in worship, you worship Allah, you have to know who you worship. So study of Aqidah, study of Sharia. In the beginning, the object of this person are the theology and the acts of worship. And that leads us to the third answer in the Quran, in the Hadith Qudsi, which is the meaning is from Allah and the word is from the Prophet. And that is that my slave continues to draw near to me with nothing more beloved to me than the obligations. Then he continues to draw near to me with extra good deeds, nawafil, until I love him. So now, let's look at this hadith. Allah loves two things in this hadith. The first thing He loves is what? He says, my slave doesn't draw near to me with anything more beloved than the obligations. And He continues to draw near to me with nawafil until I love him. So there are two beloveds here. The first love is not the person. He hasn't earned it yet. He has not earned God's love yet. And Allah's love here is the acts of worship, the obligatory acts, and avoiding forbidden acts. So that's the parallel, that's the overlap with the verse that we just mentioned. Acts of worship, obligatory acts of worship, and prohibitions that you avoid. Then after you cement yourself in that, then you start to learn, what else can I do besides the obligations? All right, pray 5 times a day, fast, we all know these things, right? In general, we can assume most Muslims know the obligations that they have to fulfill. And they know most prohibitions. Alcohol, the basics, we know. But now, the implicit meaning here in this hadith, now I need to learn more. I need to go above and beyond, because you cannot worship Allah if you don't know what the acts of worship are. So now, what are these nawafil? What are these extra acts of worship? That is the path. وَأَن لَوْ اسْتَقَامُوا عَلَى الطَّرِيقَةِ, if they were upright on the path, then we would feed them sweet waters. We quench their thirst with sweet water. That path now is all the extra acts of worship. And this takes knowledge. Now, once he does that, then Allah Ta'ala in this hadith Qudsi introduces the second love, which is finally the person. He continues to draw near to me with nawafil until I love him. He wasn't beloved yet. When he was just doing obligations and avoiding from prohibitions, he was righteous, he had mercy, and he was drawing near to Allah. His description was near. He was close to Allah, but he wasn't beloved yet. So you see here, there are mile markers, milestones on the path. When you arrive going west to east and you pass by Texas, you know that you're halfway across the country. You hit Florida, you know that you're in the east. There are milestones. When you're doing obligations and avoiding prohibitions, that's it. You're close to Allah. Because Allah describes the person who does this as yataqarrab. You are drawing near to Allah, but you haven't drawn near yet to His love. You haven't attained it yet. Until you can be described as somebody who goes above and beyond. You do the acts of worship that are not obligatory upon you. They're not obligatory, but you do them regularly, consistently. Hatta uhibba. Now, if Allah loves a person. So you see, when we say that there is a spiritual path in Islam, this is what we're talking about. There are milestones here. What is the marker? How would I personally know if Allah loves me? إِذَا أَحَبَّ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا ابْتَلَاهُ. The love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is marked by a couple things. Number one, Allah educates him in fiqh. He educates you in sharia. When Allah loves a abd, مَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. If Allah wants good for you, if Allah loves you, the sign of that love is not that you get so emotional, like the Baptists, and you're crying and gyrating and shaking and all this silliness. This is not the sign that Allah loves you or you love Allah. The sign that Allah loves you, He educates you in Islam. He inspires your heart. He fills your heart with a desire to learn. All these youth spending hours trying to learn Arabic, a foreign language, instead of doing all the things that other youth are doing that you see in the Facebook reels and stuff like this, Instagram reels. Other things that 99% of the world is doing one thing and you're doing something else. Why? Because you're inspired. Where'd the inspiration come from? That's the gift from Allah. So if you are inspired now to learn and do this hard work that Allah made easy. It's hard. But now all of a sudden, I want it. So it's easy. When you love something, Allah makes it easy. When Allah makes something easy for you, that's called an opening. We call that a fath. Something very difficult, Allah made it easy. And Allah makes it easy by making you love it. And some people, the door's closed. the sign of the door is closed, it's hard, he's lazy, he doesn't like it. So now you start learning. When you start learning and you start going on this path, guaranteed, keep in mind, there will be tests. You have to be tested. But don't ever work. I'm going to tell you about tests, but don't ever think about it again. Because one of the tricks of shaitan is I don't want to draw near to Allah because I don't want to get tested. My life is good right now. I don't want to be tested. This is one of shaitan's tricks. Shaitan is an enemy. Allah says he's an open enemy. But Allah also says he's a weak enemy. Why is he a weak enemy? How is shaitan a weak enemy? He's a weak enemy because all of his tricks are documented. The playbook on the devil is there. He's been doing the same tricks on people for thousands of years. You can study it. If you put your mind to it, you can find it in the Quran, find it in the Hadith, find it in other books of scholars, and start listing the tricks of shaitan, and you avoid them. Any team that has a playbook, all the plays are known. The NFL, what they try to do is steal the playbook of the other team. You know what they do? They're about to face a team in the playoffs, they can't handle them, what do? They go sign someone from their practice squad. You know this trick? They go sign a scrub from the practice squad. They have one need for him. Think hard, write down the plays, because we're about to face them in the playoff. There's an oldest trick in the book. If you know the playbook of the other team, you can defeat them easily. That's why shaitan, Allah said he's a weak enemy. You can learn his tricks. One of the tricks of Iblis is to scare you. Say, don't get close to Allah because it comes with tests. This is why you shouldn't be scared. Those tests, in a way, they come down upon you, but because of your worship and the good deeds that you do, your barrier becomes stronger. So the test comes down and you get less wet. Like someone is out in the rain with a little skinny umbrella, but it's just a drizzle. He's going to get wet to a degree because his umbrella doesn't cover much. Someone could be in the middle of a hurricane, but if he's in a building like this, he's completely dry. That's the difference between the people who are close to Allah that we say about them, they have the hardest tests. And the people who are not close to Allah, they have the small mini tests. But that small mini test, he's drenched. A small drizzle, but all you have is a baseball cap. Stay in there for 10 minutes, you're completely drenched, right? It's just a small drizzle, but you have no protection. You see, the awliya of Allah, the people who are near to Allah, they have big tests come down on them, but they have big protections. And as a result of that, they're dry. They're not internally harmed by the tests. Only maximum the roof gets wet, that's it. Worst case scenario, if it's really bad, you may have one leak. Doesn't bother you at all. So that's why you should never be afraid when the Prophet ﷺ said, the most beloved to the people are the most tested. Furthermore, if you go to the best army in the world, they got to test you. If you want to be the best soldier in the world, you got to be a Navy SEAL. You go to the army, they have one level of testing you. You go to the Marines, another level of testing you. Then Navy SEAL, another level of testing you. And they test you with everything. They'll test you with hot, send you into the deserts, and they give you a book bag that has an orange and a bottle of water. And you don't know when they're going to pick you up. So you don't even know how you're going to measure this out. Then after that, they take you up to Alaska, give you a book bag with some potatoes in it, and say goodbye. They pick you up when they pick you up. They do this in the Marines and Navy SEALs. Then they take you down to San Diego at 2 in the morning, and all right, go swim. Where am I swimming? Who knows? You just swim. 10, 20, 30 minutes, direct, straight swimming in the middle of the night in San Diego. Then they tell you, get out at 3 in the morning from swimming, roll in the sand. So, miserable experience. But you're the best soldier, right? If you can't be the best soldier without being tested. So you will be tested, and you will be tested by people opposing you and saying, well, what are you doing? Come on. Who do you think you are? And you want to be something great. And people are saying, they're pulling you down just by the way they look at you. Especially your family and your friends. They're going to say, what are you doing? Going to these mosques and trying to study. What is this? Who are you? Be yourself. They'll tell you that. Shaitan will send everybody to pull you down. So you have to be very, very careful that you remember this is one of the tests of Iblis. The people around me will pull me down. There's one time a Syrian scholar used to speak every day between Maghrib and Isha. And a man came up to him and he said, Sheikh, when I listen to your talks between Maghrib and Isha, I pray Maghrib, I listen to your talk, I'm floating. I go home floating. By the next day, I'm down on the ground again. I'm not interested. I'm like dragging my feet. I'm barely. What's the solution? The Sheikh said, change your friend group. The people you hang out with after Isha, they negate all this. The people you hang out with, they're the ones stopping you. All of the Quran, what does Allah tell us? The fastest route to righteousness, good friends. Simple stuff. The fastest route to be pious, hang out with other pious people. What's the fastest way to be a millionaire? Hang out with other millionaires. How did Prophet Yusuf learn the ways of the world? Was he not adopted by a minister? The minister of Egypt, the Aziz? What was he doing? What was he doing with the Aziz? First, Yusuf, Allah Ta'ala, He says we established him in Egypt. But what does that mean, established him? It means once he is established in the hearts of the elites of Egypt, then he's established in Egypt. And the first person to love him was the Aziz of Misr, the minister. And the minister, at that time, his wife was giving him a headache, Zulaykha. Well, there's a reason she was giving him a headache. These people were Hyksos, basically like a type of Semitic people that conquered Egypt. And they believed in one God. They were not the pharaohs. They believed in one God, angels, demons, and afterlife and all that. But they had innovations in them. They had lost their way. Just like the Christians, we say, yeah, that was a true religion at some point, but it's deformed now, okay? It's altered. So the Hyksos were on the religion of Abraham, but they lost it. And they had adopted some of the habits of those people. And from their habits was that a man if he becomes elite, he doesn't sleep with his wife. He observes celibacy. So Zulaykha was frustrated because her husband's celibate. Like, what is this? What's the point of marriage? So she was really frustrated. And she was taking that frustration out on him. So he said, let's go get her a slave or something to keep her company so she could stop being so frustrated. But once they bought Yusuf, he loved him so much. Instead of buying her a servant to do everything for her, he made her serve him. And he said, Akrimi mathwa. Asa an yanfa'ana aw nattakhidahu walada. Take care of this boy. He bought Yusuf. First, the intention was to get a slave for her, so she could just do other things and not have to worry about anything. Instead, Allah made him love Yusuf so much that he said, Akrimi mathwa, take care of him. And every day he'd come home. Did Yusuf eat? Is his clothes clean? What did he do today? Is he learning? So then eventually he brought him in. Yusuf, all right, we're getting a minister so-and-so, you get the water, you go get the fruit, when he's a little boy. Later on, all right, Yusuf, sit down and write this letter to the minister. He became his scribe. Then, Yusuf, you go and give the letter to so-and-so. Yusuf, you go and invite so-and-so to a meeting. He's now an assistant to a minister now. This is how Allah taught him Ta'wil al-Ahadith. Ta'wil al-Ahadith is not just dream interpretation, it's the events of the world. He became knowledgeable in languages. He became knowledgeable in governance. He became knowledgeable in so many elite things that he would have never learned in the deserts of Palestine. So if you want something, you need to hang out with the people who already have it. And that's how Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam was educated. Prophet Musa alayhi salam had the same fate of Prophet Yusuf, was taken from slavery. What was his destiny going to be? A slave. If he was left to be born with the Bani Israel, what would he have been? Digging holes, building pyramids, lifting rocks as a slave. But Allah Ta'ala brought him up to live in the house of the Pharaoh himself. When he lived in the house of Pharaoh, what did he learn? How to rule, how to govern. And Allah corrected what was wrong from those beliefs later on. Because he learned from the Pharaoh himself. He learned how to do everything. So here we have a spiritual path. The moment that you break through, there is an announcement. There is an announcement like a graduation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Hadith Qudsi, إِذَا أَحَبَّ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا نَادَى جِبْرِيلٌ يَا جِبْرِيلُ إِنِّي أُحِبُّ فُلَانًا فَأَحِبَّهُ. Oh Jibreel, if Allah loves a person, that means the moment you pass a certain mark in your devotion to Allah, and Allah may hide that from you so that you don't take your foot off the pedal, but you will pass a certain mark, there is a graduation for you in the heavens. This is a day something happens so great in the heavens and you don't even know it happened. And Allah protects you from that knowledge so that you don't take your foot off the pedal. But what is that event? When a person passes and proves his devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah calls Jibreel, Ya Jibreel, inni uhibbu fulanan fa-ahibbah. Oh Jibreel, I announce my love for so-and-so, so you love him. فَيُنَادِي جِبْرِيلُ فَيُحِبُّهُ جِبْرِيلُ. Immediately, Jibreel loves him. The moment he learns that Allah loves him, he loves him right away. These angels are perfect. There is no ego. نَحْنُ أَرْوَاحٌ طَاهِرَةٌ, they said. We are pure souls, pure spirits. The moment he hears the word that Allah loves him, immediately he loves him. فَيُحِبُّهُ جِبْرِيلُ ثُمَّ يُنَادِي فِي أَهْلِ السَّمَاءِ. Then he goes and he calls out to the announcement to all of the creation of the heavens. Jibreel is the prime minister of all the heavens. ثُمَّ يُنَادِي فِي أَهْلِ السَّمَاءِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ فُلَانًا فَأَحِبُّوهُ. Then he calls out and he says, Allah loves so-and-so, you all love him now. فَيُحِبُّهُ أَهْلُ السَّمَاءِ. The people in the heavens are different from paradise. Paradise is something different. The heavens, paradise is closed until the day of judgment. We're talking about the heavens. Everyone in the heavens immediately, when they hear that Jibreel loves so-and-so, that Allah loves so-and-so, they love him immediately. ثُمَّ يُوضَعُ لَهُ الْقَبُولُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Then every time these angels come to the earth, وَمَا نَتَنَزَّلُ إِلَّا بِأَمْرِ رَبِّكَ. If Allah allows an angel to come down to the earth, or He commands an angel to come down to the earth, he comes to the earth and he looks for him. And he surrounds him and he helps him. And that person is surrounded by malaika all the time, surrounded by angels. So when people meet this person, they love him too, because they feel such a peace around this person. So this is the graduation in the spiritual path. From there, where do you go? At this point, Allah will reveal to this person all of His secrets and His wisdom through His eyes, through His ears, and everything He does, He now uses this abd to do what this slave could have never done before. That is the meaning of كنت سمعه الذي يسمع به وبصره الذي يبصر به ويده التي يبطش بها ورجله التي يمشي بها. That is the meaning of Allah becomes His hearing with which He hears, His seeing with which He sees, His hand with which He strikes, and His foot with which He walks. It means you will learn, you will understand, you will have wisdoms you could not imagine you ever had before. And nobody knows where you get this. Wisdoms you can't ever imagine. Then abilities. You will achieve because Allah is with you now. And all these angels are with you now. You will achieve what you could have never imagined you would achieve before. Umar ibn Khattab, he was a natural born leader, right? It's natural to him. being a leader is natural. But would he have conquered the known world, minus China and India? Would he, without Islam? He would have been another tribal leader that is more powerful than everybody else, but cannot overcome his anger, cannot overcome his drinking, and his judgment is clouded by that. And you mess around, off with your head. Half Quraysh should have been 50% if he ruled. Everyone would have been dead. The other half. Umar ibn Khattab, he was a natural leader. But without Islam, he was a drinker, and he was angry. And this clouded his judgment. Islam came, gave him a sense of purpose, made him control his anger, guided him to this, and took alcohol away from him. And by the way, it was one of his ideas to ask the Prophet ﷺ, "O Messenger, ask Allah for a ruling on alcohol. It's a problem. Alcohol is a problem. It just puts us in a spectrum of, it's somewhat good to relieve tension, but then it puts us into drunkenness, which causes problems. We need a final say on alcohol." Omar asked that question. Then the rulings on alcohol came down afterwards. So wait, without Omar, it wouldn't have been haram? Of course it would have been. But Allah used him to initiate this questioning to elevate his rank in our eyes, so that we know how great he is. He became the ruler of that whole Near East area, that whole world. We call it the Near East. That whole area. He would have been nothing but another tribal leader that never enters the history books without Islam. So when you advance in the spiritual path, then Allah reveals His wisdoms to you. You achieve what you had never achieved before, and your love of Allah doesn't stop growing. It continues to go up and up and up. And love is something that has no limits. These are the three results of attainment to the end of the spiritual path, which is an end that has no end. But what ends is the struggle of worship. Worship is no longer, you are mukallaf bila takalluf. You are legally responsible to do it, but you find no hardship in it. You find sweetness in it. That is the summary of Allah saying, وَأَن لَوْ اسْتَقَامُوا عَلَى الطَّرِيقَةِ لَأَسْقَيْنَاهُمْ مَاءً غَدَقًا.
يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما